do we take it on? How do we equip ourselves as quickly as we can to serve our kids? So today is an opportunity to be in this learning conversation together. And I think part of the theme has to do with adaptability and creativity and flexibility. And as challenging as these times are, the opportunity to step into something very vital and alive as long distance learning through all the mediums that we'll be discussing it's right upon us. And we're very fortunate today to have a tremendous leader in this field. And I've seen her at times, and this morning got to chat a little bit before we start. And we're going to be fortunate to hear from Mrs. Autrilla Sheba Gillis, and Sheba is her kind of nickname, and also from several staff from the EduCare Foundation. And they're going to be sharing with us the distance learning models that they've been adapting and developing, and how to prepare ourselves and our staffs to enter into this way of teaching. Also, we'll be looking at how to recruit and retain our students, and also what are some of the challenges and lessons that they've been learning, and not just them, but many of us. And this is going to be a chance for a conversation with questions towards the end of the time together this morning. And as Armando said, we'll be together for about an hour and a half to perhaps 2 hours. There'll be a chance for questions at the end, and we'll be sharing resources as we go. And we ask that you be active with us. If you can, as questions come up, put them straight into the chat box. We'll be taking note of that, and then later on, we'll have a chance to voice out or read out on your questions. So without any further introduction, I want to make a mention of Autrilla Sheba Gillis, who's our first presenter today, and she's the Director of Expanded Learning at ISANA Academies in Los Angeles. Her family has a legacy of community service in the Long Beach community, and she was mentioning a little bit to us as we were preparing this morning. It dates back to the 1950s. It includes her mother, Sharon Malukas, her grandmother, the late community activist, Autrilla W. Scott. And as an educator, Sheba has been a middle school history teacher, and I kind of resonate because I was a middle school history teacher. She's been a curriculum specialist, a vice principal, and a principal. And on the county level, she's twice been elected as the co-facilitator of the Los Angeles County Office of Education's Learning Community Number 8, which provides governance to charter school expanding learning programs throughout Southern California. And she's also served as a founding member of the California Charter School Association inaugural African American Charter Leaders Symposium. She's also been involved on the state level, and she has served on numerous California Department of Ed expanded learning steering committees, been featured in numerous training videos, and most recently was appointed to the California Department of Ed Expanded Learning's Policy Committee. She's currently pursuing a doctorate in educational leadership while balancing her career and most important role as a mother to an amazing 6-year-old daughter named Aubrey. So let me turn it over, and with our great thanks, back to you, Sheba Gillis.
Thank you, that was awesome. Good morning, everyone. Share my screen here. Okay, like Stu said, and again, thank you for the great introduction. I am the Director of Expanded Learning for ISANA Academies, and I'm excited to share with you what we've been doing since March-ish, April, to bring expanded learning online for our students so that they don't have that lapse in services. ISANA Academies is a network of charter schools. We are primarily in the LA area. We have 6 schools that spread from Compton all the way out to Sun Valley and North Hollywood, and we serve a total of 3,000 students, kindergarten through 8th grade. So how did we get here? What led us to develop a distance learning program for expanded learning? Like everyone else, when schools closed, we were like, what is going on? What should we do? How can we serve? And so initially our response was to wait to see what day school was doing. And so we're pretty fortunate at ISANA with that within our program is built into the regular school day. We run our own expanded learning programs, and we absolutely have a seat at the table, which I know is different from a lot of different organizations. And so I'm a part of the executive team, and we sit and we collaborate, and they really, they rely on us a lot. And so my first reaction was, let's just wait and see what they do and we'll support however we can. And so we waited and we waited. And their first move was to continue with our online programming. So we used iReady and the other programs that we have, but that left my staff sort of twiddling our thumbs. And I said, okay, let's do something called EXL Live. And everybody was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, it'll be great. It'll be virtual digital enrichment. We'll just take our program, we'll take everything that we're doing and we'll move it online. And so of course, my staff was really nervous. They did not know what that meant. I can't do that. How do we do this? I said, stop. Everything that we do on campus, we're going to do online in front of a computer. It's the same exact thing. And so there was a lot of training that went into that, and I'll go over that in a little bit, but that's sort of where we started. And so we actually started live instruction before day school did. So we led the way at ISANA in that regard for distance learning. The platforms that we use. We tinkered around with this because as an organization, we're using Microsoft Teams for everything, but we weren't really happy with the quality of the video and just the ease in accessing, so we used Zoom. And so what we did is we had every single site coordinator create a Zoom account. And so we used initially everyone had the free Zoom accounts. We use password protected rooms. So there's one ISANA-wide password for all Zoom rooms. And then we had a dedicated Zoom training. And so there are a couple of pictures here of students engaged, of what the lessons look like. It literally is this. There's a lot of lesson planning that goes into it. Students are able to participate. We recently started using the Zoom rooms to do breakouts for the older students, but this is what it looks like. And so we use Zoom exclusively for our EXL Live. There's a note here. So we do have one paid account. We do lots of virtual field trips. And when we do virtual field trips, we always exceed the capacity for the free rooms. And so whenever we do virtual field trips, we use a free account because then we can host up to 500. So how many hours of programming? Like I said, we moved our regular program online. So Monday through Thursday, we run EXL Live programming from 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. And that's broken up into 3 different blocks. So from 2 to 3, we do academic enrichment. Our academic enrichment is exactly what it is during on-campus school. So we are utilizing the grade level pacing guides that are provided by our curriculum specialists and by our teachers. Whatever standard they're working on that week, we're also working on in expanded learning. And so you'll see here that on Mondays and Wednesdays, it's kinder through 3rd grade. Tuesdays and Thursdays, this is switched. And so then you'd have academic enrichment for 4th through 8th, and kinder through 3rd would be doing literacy enrichment. Our 3 to 4 p.m. block for the older kids is current events. And for the younger kids, it's just literacy in general. They do lots of read alouds and different activities to practice fluency and reading comprehension. And from 4 to 5, it is our social enrichment block. So that's where we do our virtual field trip. Our art classes are really big. We've done yoga. We have a cooking class that draws in lots of family members, not just students, where they're making things. In this form here, our staff has to turn this form in every Friday by 2 o'clock. It goes to our webmaster. And so they're responsible for dropping in the standard and the topic that they're covering that week. Any supplies that students might need. We post this on Fridays so that if there are things that students want to participate in that require certain, let's say for the cooking class, certain ingredients, the parents have ample time to go get those. And then they add in the link here, the Zoom link for their own rooms. And you'll see what this looks like on a landing page on our website. This is the back end piece of it for scheduling, but I'll show you in a bit what it looks like for the students. I mentioned that we do virtual field trips. And so I'll show you a news clip here.
Theme parks may be closed and school classes moved online, but that's not stopping one group from taking a virtual field trip to Disneyland California Adventure. The ISANA Academies expanded learning team took a group of students to the park via Zoom today. Students got to experience several rides virtually and have some fun together.
The virtual field trips are really a way for us to break the monotony of social distancing with our students during the pandemic. And so we're taking them to places that they haven't been before, places that they have not seen, places maybe that they one day aspire to visit.
Expanded learning leaders say the virtual field trip is a way of ensuring students still have fun together even while physically distant.
Perfect. So we do virtual field trips once a week, and they usually occur on Thursdays. And the way that we split that task up is that each school site, and we have 6 schools, each school takes a field trip and they're in a rotation. So yesterday, students went to Legoland. And what we do with this is we try to pick places that kids have heard about, but maybe don't have access to. With our population of students, they're inner city communities, you know, they haven't traveled a lot, they haven't seen anything. And so we're really pushing the envelope. Disneyland, of course, was our biggest draw so far, but we've collaborated with outside organizations. We collaborated with we had a live field trip with the llama farm in Texas, and they walked us through and showed us all their animals and the grounds. We collaborated with a hippo preserve in Africa. And so that was another live field trip where we were, you know, in real time with them in Africa, and we were able to share that with our students. So for us, it's really about exposure. What can we expose them to? How can we sort of take them out of their houses and their living rooms and into different places?
Theme parks may be closed and school.
There we go. So our attendance, when we started this, I had no attendance goals. Like, let's just set this up. Let's give these kids something to do. I could feel the parents' pain. Like Stu said, I have a 6-year-old. Like, let's give these parents a break for a few hours each day. What can we do to distract their children? And so initially it was, let's just do it. Let's see how many kids come. We literally didn't have any expectations. But by the time we started the program, we ran for 8 weeks until the end of the school year. Our average attendance each week across all sessions was 528. And within that 8-week span, we hosted 4,228 unique visitors. So you're probably asking yourself, how did we track attendance? So these are our attendance sheets. And so this attendance sheet exists for each of the sessions. So if you have kindergarten academic enrichment, then you're filling this sheet out each day. You just come in and you drop down how many students. Now this is different from what we did last year. Last year, again, we just jumped right in, like just write down how many students you saw in the screen, how many total attendees you had. But this year, to be more targeted, we're asking them to track how many students in each session they have from each school, so that we have a clearer idea of who's coming from which school. And so on this sheet here, they'll just put the numbers. So I had 2 students from Himalaya, I had 10 from Nason. We find that schools that have the higher attendance are schools where the day school teachers are really pushing the program. So we were fortunate that with the school closure, ISANA became one big learning community. It wasn't compartmentalized in departments anymore. And so our staff was really able to assimilate into the culture of the teachers, and they were able to sit in on those meetings. And so then on Class Dojo and on Seesaw or whatever method, whatever communication means the parents were using, they were broadcasting our schedules. They were really pulling their students in. We have an amazing PR person within our organization. And so she's always posting on Facebook daily. She posts a schedule. On Instagram, she posted. And so what we find is that a lot of kids are pushing straight through from Facebook. So parents are not even going to our distance learning website. They're going right to Facebook because that's easily accessible for them, and they're pushing into our sessions. This year, we are adding roll sheets. And one of the things that we struggled with in taking roll during the spring was that we were not only servicing expanded learning students, it was open to anyone. And so if it was only expanded learning students, taking attendance would be a lot easier because it would just be the students that are enrolled for us in our system we use, which is youth services. But now this year, I'm going to have them log the names of each student that is in the session. And so you'll see the color designated tabs here. So for each school, they'll go in. It'll be tedious for them, maybe the first couple of weeks because there'll be new students. But what we found is that the same students come again and again and again. And so as we start to really get set, I think that it'll be easy for them because the student names will already be here. They'll just place a check mark on the days that the students attended. And so we have had conversation about what attendance looks like, because I know everyone's trying to figure out attendance for day school and, you know, around the legislation that's been released. And so there are conversations about whether or not certain components of this program would constitute attendance for students for the day. And so we're looking at that, but definitely in this format, it will be easier to track. Challenges, what challenges did we have? So the first challenge was scheduling. So I showed you all that nice grid that had the days and the sessions and the times. And so when we started this in March, I created a shared spreadsheet and I had the blocks, and I sent a message out to my program leaders and site coordinators. And I said, hey, go ahead and sign up, first come, first serve. That was a disaster, because when people logged on and they saw that what they wanted was gone, I know you're not going to believe this, but people were deleting other people's names and typing theirs in. There was no way for me to track it. So then we're scrambling. People are complaining and upset. I didn't want that. I had this. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Just try it out. And luckily, once they tried it and they sort of got situated, they were okay. So we fixed that this year. We pulled up all the available sessions. And I sat with my site coordinators who served as session moderators, and I'll go over that in just a second. And they were able to tell me these two people don't work well together. This person has a really strong personality and took over planning. They probably shouldn't be with this person. So scheduling was an issue. And then also because a lot of my staff, they're students. And so although they can't physically go to their college campuses, they still have online classes, which is why the time for our EXL Live program is from 2 to 5, because those are the hours that they would have normally worked. I was leery of moving it up earlier in the day because I didn't think that some of my staff would be accessible. I talked a little bit earlier about the paradigm shift. A lot of my staff was like not comfortable. I don't want to be on camera. I don't want people to see me. Why? They see you in the classroom every day. Like, it's still you. Everything's the same. Just do what you normally do. And so once I was really able to get them to shift their way of thinking, it was a smooth transition. And the people that were most worried had like fancy backdrops, and they were hanging up butcher paper and like really turning their living rooms into classrooms. So that was a challenge initially, but now it's not. Lesson planning was a challenge because I'll be the first to admit that I'm a control freak. So in a regular world, when we are physically on the school grounds, at ISANA, we do lesson planning at the district level, and then we disseminate those lesson plans to the school sites. And so I have 2 amazing learning facilitators, and they literally go through and create packets of lesson plans for each grade level that has academic, social, physical, everything embedded in it. And so I was like, oh my goodness, we have all these sessions. There's no way that we can knock these, that we can produce these lesson plans fast enough. So I'm like, I'm gonna have to teach them how to do lesson plans, how to unpack standards, how to really like find resources, everything. So that was a challenge, but we got through it, and I'm very impressed. I don't think that I'll ever do lesson plans on the district level again, because they killed it. And then the last thing was day school collaboration. Not really a challenge, but because we were sort of compartmentalized, and so it's after school and day school, and we were sort of doing our own thing, but now we're just all in one great big ISANA community, ISANA family. I think getting my staff to shift their perspective again, that paradigm shift, with no, these are now your educator peers, and work together and see them as an asset and really see what resources they have available for you. And so just acclimating my staff to being a part of the whole school team was a challenge initially. Technology was also a challenge, but like I said, my staff is resilient and they handled it. I only had 1 staff person out of over 50 say to me that they didn't have the technology and they wouldn't be able to do it. And so we do have expanded learning laptop carts at some school sites. And so for the 3 or 4 people that did not have technology, they were able to push into school sites before they completely shut down and borrow computers. But this year, I asked them what we had a think tank last week, and I said, what would have made it easier for you? And some people said headsets, some people said ring lights, some people said, a wireless mouse, so I didn't have to keep fumbling around. So all of these, everything you see here is coming to my staff for the fall. So it's been ordered. They'll have the headsets with the microphones so that the audio is better. Everyone is getting a laptop, which is huge. I'm so excited about that. When we come back on campus, the possibilities are endless with all of my staff people having technology. Ring lights, because some people are outside, some people are in, my yoga teacher does her yoga class in her bedroom on the floor next to her bed. I have my cooking teachers are sometimes in dark kitchens, and so the ring light's going to come in handy. The wireless mouse was recommended by IT. And then, so with our cooking class and our art classes, they do a 2-angle projection. And so one of the cameras, the computer is focused on them, but then they're also logged in from a cell phone. And the cell phone is angled down so that you see whatever their hands are doing. And so someone said, you know, Ms. Gillis, they sell phone tripods. And I said, no, I didn't know, didn't have a clue. So they asked and they shall receive. So I'm hopeful. I told them that they did an amazing job with what they had, literally an amazing job. But I think that this will really take it to the next level. So expanded learning, EXL Live roles and responsibilities. So there's me, and I sort of oversee all of the scheduling. I work with our district office, with the curriculum specialists, with the principals to make sure that we're in alignment with what they have going on. I have 2 learning facilitators who work at the district level. Typically, they're split between the North and the South. So one oversees staff training and operations in the North, and the other oversees in the South. And so what they've done as we've shifted into EXL Live is that they hop in and out of planning meetings, lesson planning meetings. They're still doing, you know, staff things here and there, staff that don't show up, staff that are turning things in late, still holding them accountable. And they're going in, if they were on school sites, they would be pushing into classrooms doing observations. And so they're still pushing into these sessions and doing observations so that each week, every single session receives at least one written observation with feedback on what's going great, what they can do a little bit differently. I have every single site coordinator is a session moderator. And so when we split it up, it ends up being that each session moderator has 2 sessions a week. And so as session moderator, they're responsible for providing the Zoom link. They are responsible for hosting lesson planning meetings with their staff. And so they go through and they pick the standard, they unpack the standard. There's a lesson planning template that they use. They go through and make sure that that is completely filled out. They make sure that it's submitted to myself and the learning facilitators for approval. And then they are responsible for entering the information into the landing page. I don't touch the landing page at all. They know that on Friday by 2, all of that information needs to be there so that our webmaster can transfer it over into our distance learning page. And then each session has 2 session facilitators. The reason we have 2 is because sometimes, even though we're working from home, things happen, right? And because people have different strengths and weaknesses. So because they lesson plan together, they're able to plan a lesson that's cohesive, and they're able to bounce different aspects of the lesson off of each other as they go through. Because the session moderator leads them through the lesson planning process, if something happens, we had one session during the spring where someone's grandma died and somebody else was sick. And so both of the session facilitators were out. But because the session moderator was there and she was an active part of creating the lesson plan, she was able to jump right in and facilitate that session. And so with having a team of 3, I think it would be extremely rare that everyone would be out, but that's the way that we've organized it so that there's always a backup plan. A built-in sub is what I like to call it. And so this is how staff is broken up. So the session facilitators are my program leaders. Session moderators are the site coordinators. The learning facilitators are the district level staff. And then there's me. So training, what type of training did we need to get there? Lots. So the first thing that we did when we rolled out EXL Live, we gave them a general idea of what it was. And because we offer the 3 components, the academic enrichment, the literacy enrichment, and the social enrichment, myself and the 2 learning facilitators each took one of those components and we did a demo lesson. So they know that their lessons need to be 30 to 45 minutes long. And so we created lessons. I think that I did academic enrichment, phonics, and the staff did not do well with the phonics activities. We had a nice little laugh there. But we did demo lessons for them. After they were able to observe the lesson, then each session had to do a demo lesson for us. So we gave them a standard. They had to collaborate with their moderator. They had to put together a 1-hour lesson. And then we pulled in just random people to watch them do the lesson to help them get over the Zoom jitters. From that, we gave feedback. Some people nailed it the first time. Other people needed to go back and fix a few things and present again. But we did that until we felt like everyone had a good handle. Once we actually got started, we saw that student engagement was something that we needed to literally address, because the Zoom room would open and my staff would just be sitting there like this. And they would not start until it was time to start. And so we went over little things like playing music and greeting the kids by name and just what your energy should be, and really having to explain to them that, you know, these kids have been sitting in the house all day. A lot of them haven't had any interaction because their parents are working and they can't actively engage them during the day. So when they log on to EXL Live, I want you to be so animated and so happy and just really welcoming them in. And it literally, we saw week after week that these Zoom rooms became learning communities. The kids were super excited to see each other. Hey, what'd you do this weekend? And then even with our parents, we have parents popping in that are excited to see staff members that they maybe haven't seen in a while. So I really asked them to create communities. Yes, it's expanded learning, but if we were on campus, you would have a community within your classroom and within your school site. So how do we replicate that on Zoom? We did a Zoom training, because Zoom seems easy, but when you are in a moderator or a presenter capacity, there's lots of things that you need to know. And so one of my learning facilitators, Frank Alvarez, is amazing with anything technology that has to do with technology. So Frank did an amazing Zoom presentation. We did PowerPoint. We're revisiting PowerPoint this week so that we can jazz our PowerPoints up and add more features to them. Collaborative lesson planning was a big one. That took about 2 or 3 weeks to really explain how to lesson plan and how to craft an objective and how to make sure that there's student engagement. How do you check for understanding? We went through everything, and unpacking standards was another big one, because a lot of them, like I said, we lesson plan from the district. And so they weren't familiar with the Common Core standards. And so we literally went on the website and unpacked standards and then challenged them to find resources or come up with snazzy activities or lesson titles. And then mandated reporting, which they had already done, but I started getting questions like, hey, Ms. Gillis, this kid said that they're having a really hard time because their mom screams at them all day. Or this kid said he'd be having a great day if his dad would stop hitting him. What should I do? The same thing you would do if you were on campus. And so we partnered with our director of pupil services, and he pushed in and he was able to provide an update for them on mandated reporting. And then a lot of it is literally, my site coordinator staff is amazing, and a lot of them have been with us forever. And so as issues arise, they're able to navigate through them, and they're able to sort of diffuse them with their staff so that they don't trickle up. When things do trickle up, I'm surprised. I'm like, oh, okay, hi, like no one ever calls me anymore. But they're pretty knowledgeable. And so they're able to implement lots of things. And they're also very vocal. There's a couple of things that I've asked them to do that they're just like, no, Ms. Gillis, absolutely not. That doesn't make sense. You're making our workload too hard. And so I've really, as a leader, had to take a step back and to really listen to them and make sure that I'm crafting a program that makes sense to them. Because in the same way that we're wanting to provide engagement and really break the monotony for our students, our staff also has things going on. They're in school, they're parents, they're taking care of sick relatives. And so I've really allowed them to guide what the program looks like this year. I was asked to provide a link so that you can see an example of one of our modules. So right now, we're I don't want to call it dead, but we're in a downtime because it's summer. And so we're offering Camp ISANA. And so Camp ISANA, we had every single program leader submit 2 pre-recorded lessons. And so over the course of the summer, students are able to log in. They'll click here to begin, and it literally pulls up a menu of activities and pre-recorded lessons that they can do. So if someone wants to do all physical enrichment, they can. If someone is struggling with reading fluency, they can click on those lessons. But then we do go live 3 times a week. So on Tuesday, ISANA has an amazing performing arts program with professional vocal, dance, and acting coaches. So on Tuesdays, the performing arts department does a live session. On Wednesdays, one of our PE teacher does a fitness class. But every Thursday at noon, Expanded Learning does a live virtual field trip. And so if you're interested in watching that, you can come here on Thursday at noon. Or you can wait until August 18th, because on August 18th, this little tab here, you'll see the EXL Live logo. It will go back active. And so if you click on that tab, it will take you to a breakdown of all of the classes that are being offered that day. And so between 2 to 5, if you click on this link, you'll be able to go right in, and it will have the session password. I'll ask that if you do pop in, identify yourself, because my staff will kick you right out if they see an adult that they don't recognize. They'll text me, "Miss Gillis, do you know this person?" I'm like, "No," and they'll put you right out. So just tell them, "Hey, Miss Gillis invited me. I'm just here to observe." But they'd love to have you. It's fun to see the kids, especially if you pop in the week of August 18th. It should be really cute. The kids haven't seen each other. They should be really excited. And then I just realized that I didn't put my email address on here, but I'll put it in the chat box in case anyone has questions. And that's it for me.
Wow, that was incredible. I kept reading through the chat room of all these comments of the wealth of information you're sharing. And I was inspired most particularly by your enthusiasm, your energy, your attitude. And I think staff just move with that. And as a leader that you are, and I think you kind of model that for all of us, that carries so far in the work that we're doing. And there's a lot of questions that came through. What we'd like to do is kind of turn it to the older youth virtual with the EduCare team, and then we'll get into the questions. So those of you who are putting questions in, please continue, and we'll circle back around and put all that into time with you, Autrilla, and with the EduCare team with questions and answers. But just thank you. It's, I mean, I think people are now hungry. I mean, let me just, there's one question I was curious about, so we'll turn to EduCare, but one quick question. People, somebody was asking about how to get a hold of the virtual field trips. What type of resource, where would they turn to find out how to gather that?
My staff is super resourceful. And so and it was their idea to do virtual field trips, my site coordinators. And I said, "Okay, do it." And they said, "Well, what should we do?" And I said, "It was your idea. You tell me." So I said, "I want you." But what they've been doing is picking a location. Like yesterday was Legoland. I'm giving you guys all of our tips, but that's okay because we're one EXL family here. So let's say Legoland. Yesterday, our site coordinator, Nastasha, did Legoland. And so they go on YouTube, literally go on YouTube. It should probably be something that you're familiar with so you know to navigate. But they literally get a video of someone walking through the entrance and going up to the front. Then they go to each ride and they'll play videos of people that have like the cams on their head. So the kids are actually in the ride and the kids will have their hands up and they're all excited. They'll pick the food that's inside of those locations. We sat through a Disneyland parade. So literally YouTube is going to be your best friend.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you. And we'll come back on some of the other questions that many of you wrote in on the chat room. And if you have other questions, just kind of gather them and we'll circle back on that. So thanks again, Autrilla. Inspiring, wonderful work. And I want to turn, some of you asked, what about the high school age, the older youth? So we're fortunate to be invited through the Temescal Associates How Kids Learn to Can We Gather In from EduCare Foundation, who focuses on older youth after-school programs. I'm the co-founder, president of EduCare. My wife's the other co-founder. I always like to give her due notice. And we've been at it now for 30 years. And the best ones who can really speak to this is the tremendous staff that's put it together. Adaptability and nothing was going to hold back was their theme, and they went right at it. So I want to introduce first our program director, Armando Diaz, and then as they present, they'll have a chance to introduce their kind of expertise in older youth virtual learning. So Armando, turning it over to you.
Thank you, Stu. Appreciate it. And just like, let me go to the first slide. Like everybody, really, once we got the call March 13th in terms of everything, school shutting down, I think our staff got together the following week and really became resourceful in terms of what we do and how to support our students. Probably you guys had the same challenge we had. We were able to, again, not support students face-to-face or virtually online. So some of the schools, school districts, we did do pre-recorded content for our students. We were fortunate at some other schools, we were able to, again, support the students directly, virtually, which was really good. And a lot of what we're gonna share today takes over what we've done over the 5-month or the 6 months now course of planning and first and foremost supporting our students. So again, we kind of go again with our mission to inspire and empower young people to become responsible citizens, compassionate leaders, and live their dreams. And our goal is to continue what our mission really kind of served and taking it virtually. Through our expanded learning, just a little bit of context of who we are. As Stu said, we've been around for 30 years now. We serve on a daily basis. We're on site at 22 campuses, middle school and high schools. We serve about 27,000 students annually through our expanded learning after school, and through our students are outperforming. As you guys know, our students that attend our programs after school are doing much better than those that don't. That comes across everywhere across the state in terms of students involved in expanded learning. Additionally, we support 41 middle school and high schools through social emotional learning, meaning that we work with not only our after school programs, but additional high schools in supporting students directly, staff, and also just the whole school community and the parents. And you can see some of the data that has come out of those supports, just embedding what we call social emotional learning and EduCare special sauce of HeartSet. So a little bit, and then altogether, EduCare supports about 98 schools, and of course, many school districts up and down the state in professional development. So at first, I'm gonna share a little bit of what we did virtually. So again, our expanded learning professionals kind of tip the uniqueness and just their best practices of what they were doing on a daily basis after school and took it virtual. We were able to create over 800 plus virtual sessions for our students virtually through YouTube. So that's some of the virtual yoga, drum lessons, virtual arts programming, taking that virtual tours as well, specifically with the college tours, as some of our students weren't able to physically visit. So, and again, here's a little bit more of the programs that we've kind of created. And here's just a little glimpse of our social emotional learning program, the ACE program, which we were founded 30 years ago with, and taking it virtually with the schools. Here's us last week. We're working with about 70 incoming freshmen with our facilitators, just taking that face-to-face approach and taking it virtually and interactive. So it's been it's a lot of planning time, just so you guys know, because a lot of it is collaborative efforts like Ms. Gillis shared earlier. And we've taken it in a collaborative approach, because looking to make it fun and engaging, especially with high school students to come in, it's got to be a little different. You got to look at it at every single lens. And that's something that we've done in terms of our curriculum building, and both with our social emotional support and our extended learning programs. And again, we did a lot of one-on-one support with students. We were fortunate enough to be able to do that. Here you see one of our staff just supporting our student through her college access and just gearing up in that transition from even high school into college. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Bryn Drescher, who's one of our facilitators, and just kind of share a little bit an activity of what it takes to have the kids engaged. So Bryn?
Yes, thank you, Armando. And thank you, Ms. Gillis, for that amazing opening act. You're wonderful. And really want to expound on what she was talking about with engagement and interactivity and energy. If there's something I'm known for, it's my energy. So we're about to practice some of that right now. First of all, Majane, I want to say thank you for commuting in from San Francisco. Just really appreciate you flying in from there because I see you got that beautiful bridge in the background. Jennifer Garcia, also, that mug is huge. What is in there, okay? And I also, Edith, you have beautiful pictures in the background of your family. So just want to acknowledge that. I wanted to know who those people were and I had so many questions. All right, so right there, I just used 3 people's names on the Zoom. Every single one of them smiled when I said their names. So that's one example of like seeing your students, really just being interactive with them right there. The second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna play a game. All right, also notice how I had you type where you were from and what your organization is. So I can say, oh my gosh, the young lady from Redlands, that's amazing. You know, like I start to see where you're from. It creates that engagement. It starts people using the chat right off the top. We're gonna play a game called the alphabet game. I need you to have your hands on the keyboard, because we're gonna race. And so I need you to be ready. I see people moving forward. I see some competitors. Majane got really serious. She even left the bridge. So now we are about to play. All right, so this is the alphabet game. I'm gonna say a letter and then I'm gonna give you a category. So, oh, sorry, I'm gonna say the category first. So I need a veggie that starts with the letter C. C. Oh, whoa, this is amazing. Okay, so the first person was Marguerite with carrot, Ryan Martinez following behind with celery. Now, most people say carrot, but here's the thing that I do. I look for any kind of interesting or different answers, right? So I'm like, most people said carrot, but look at Mark bringing in the cucumber, Mark and Courtney, and cauliflower. Nice, that's great, Lauren. So that way you use those things, that's much more engaging. So we do that just as a way to kind of break up the monotony of like obviously bringing in some valuable fun activities and some heartfelt activities, but then also interjecting some energy. So I'm gonna give you a second category. Get on the keyboard, get on the keyboard. Here we go, here we go, here we go. And we're gonna do a city or a state that starts with the letter M. Here we go, M, M, M. Okay, all right, we got Maine from Zahida, Katie, Maine, Montana, Jenny Rosenbaum, Minnesota, yes, Michigan, where I went to college. All right, not the university, don't get confused, I'm Michigan State, I'm a Spartan. All right, so anyway, I just want to say that's a big part of what we do, just making sure that we infuse energy in everything we do. You know, older youth can be harder to, bring to water as far as engagement. So we just make sure we see them, we acknowledge things, we start conversations because people love to talk about things. If I asked Jennifer what was on that mug, I'm quite sure she would tell me. So it's that kind of stuff, just being able to engage, find ways to engage the students, keep the energy high. I know it's my job to drive that energy for that hour. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my amazing colleague, Jenny Rosenbaum.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Fran. My name's Jenny. I also obviously work for EduCare, and I work on social emotional learning in partnership with my after-school site coordinator, and I'm placed at the Social Justice Humanitas Academy in San Fernando, which is part of the LA area. So we're out there. You'll probably heard of the San Fernando Valley. I work in the actual San Fernando. So this summer, I've had the opportunity to work myself with about 35 12th grade students, while also supporting our 9th grade teachers in providing a summer bridge program to help transition the 9th graders and get them acclimated to high school, especially acclimated to high school on Zoom. So I'm going to share 3 practical tips that I found to be super helpful in not only running successful sessions, but building meaningful relationships over Zoom with students that I've never met before at times. So the first tip is I really work to create opportunities for small group or individual check-ins to build in more personalized relationships. So for example, part of my job is getting them ready for college. And so what I ask them to do is choose 2 or 3 friends, maybe 4 or 5, and we'll get together and talk about where might you want to go to college? Very simple question. A lot of them, we never really talked about going to college. We talked about their concerns about senior year. We talked about what was going on over the summer, but it was my way of building a much more personal relationship. And in the context of their close friends, they were actually more willing to open up, have greater dialogue, as opposed to a larger Zoom of even 20 or 30 people. Similarly, I would give them little short assignments each week. So for me, We're a social justice school, so every week they had to do an act of resistance. I didn't care what they put down as long as they were being conscious and just sending me something that they were doing out of their consciousness. And when they didn't send me something, it was my clue to check in with them. Hey, what's going on? Everything good? And inevitably I found out, for example, one student was dealing with some major health issues. You know, you start learning the things you need to know to provide the supports that you want to provide. The second piece of advice I have is leverage all the outside learning opportunities and resources. Similar to the virtual field trips, there are so many virtual learning opportunities. My students attended the Black Lives Matter LA town halls that happen every Thursday night with these amazing guest speakers. We worked in partnership with some university professors. And when we did it, we did a lot with the chat. So it allowed them, I would screen share whatever we were watching, and it would allow them to chat, ask questions. Some of them are English learners, so it allowed them to ask vocabulary questions, but really to dialogue about what was going on without sort of being too public and feeling like they were out there. The last thing that I took away from the summer is you do want people to turn their cameras on when they're connecting. We did a lot of restorative circles and things like that. But there are times when it's okay not to have a camera on. When students are journaling, when students are just listening to a lecture or something, the camera's tiring and they don't always have to have it on, and that's okay. And we had, I surveyed them about why they do or don't use cameras. And so I knew what their reasons were for sometimes turning it off. Some of them are very self-conscious. Most of them, it wasn't fear of me seeing their house or anything like that. Nobody, I think, said that. So it's been really interesting. I'm happy to share more later, but I want to share those 3 tips and pass it on to my colleague, Gerardo.
Thank you, Jenny. Good seeing everybody. I missed a lot of these faces. I miss seeing you guys at LACO meetings, things of that nature, so it's good seeing everybody here. I wanted to speak to some degree about the professional development that we've done internally within the organization, in particular with Afterschool. This you can see is from one of our Zoom meetings. Switch over to the next slide. Our approach has been very, very specific. I could be being very candid with you, being very straightforward. We did not get it right the first time. It's a constant process. We are constantly reevaluating what we're doing. The one thing that we did notice was that we had to focus on both management as well as our program staff. We strongly believe that if you're to lead from the front. If we are requiring one of our coordinators to do something, we're doing it right along with them. This is new territory for everybody. Another thing we focused on was the professional and the personal. Due to the pandemic, due to social uprisings, we have to honor our staff and their approach and their mental health as well. So facilitation for these PDs, a lot of it was done by quote unquote experts in the field. It could be webinars such as this. It can be bringing in people that work at our school sites, administrators. We want as much input as possible. When you have staff such as Bryn, Jenny, Margalit, who you'll hear from soon, obviously bringing them in to lead some of those facilitations. Management, having coordinators, our very own after school staff also run some and facilitate some of those trainings. And one of the more important and crucial ones were the roundtable conversations, just allowing a moment for everybody to be heard, voicing concerns, things of that nature. That was basically our approach for this. Next slide, Armando, thank you. Some of the topics that we covered, some of them you've already heard. We've obviously done the district mandated trainings. Those would be our child abuse trainings, suicide prevention trainings, risk management. The one thing that we also focused on this time around was self-care. We would do sessions periodically where we would host morning meditation services for our staff. Again, just having roundtable conversations where they could voice opinions, voice concerns, a lot of other social emotional learning. We just went through 3 days of that. No, 4 days, I'm sorry. Bryn was available to lead us with that. So we were able to get 60 of our coordinators in one Zoom call where the focus was social emotional. Then we did program trainings. We did everything from lesson planning, how to run a Zoom call, quote unquote, run a Zoom call effectively using different techniques, different tools. We used that time also to get them to start planning out, say, the museum trips, the virtual field trips. We inundated them with trainings in regards to technology, everything from Zoom, Google Classroom, Schoology, MySys, anything and everything. We bombarded them with those trainings, administrative trainings, conflict resolution. We were fortunate enough to purchase a business license for all of our coordinators with Udemy, where they're able to take classes online throughout the week. And we're also very reflective of their time. I mean, we are very aware of the situation. We did it within reason, and we were very conscious of their time and their personal time as well. We wanted them to take care of themselves. So again, we'll be open to more specific questions later on, but I did want to pass it over to Margalit, who will be talking about professional development outside of the organization.
Great. Thank you to Gerardo. We call you Jerry, actually. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. And I'm just so grateful to be a part of EduCare. I've been involved as a facilitator for many years. And in the past few years, I've also been very involved with curriculum development. And what was very fortunate was that a couple years before the pandemic, we actually had started getting online with our Growth Heartset education. So we had a little bit of a start with what we were needing to provide very quickly, but there was still a lot of lessons along the way, since we were now reaching out to a much larger audience with our professional development, which was all focused around social emotional learning primarily, and also really emphasizing experiential learning, which is a big part of our ACE initiative with our schools, with our students, our teachers, and our parents as well. So one of the challenges we faced right away was just that a lot of the teachers or whoever, the different educators at different levels didn't have the experience of using Zoom. So we very quickly came up with, and I don't know if Armando, if you have a slide on this, of how we created like a screenshot of what the dashboard looked, because we primarily use Zoom, so that we could kind of walk them through the different tools. So when we started doing that, we found that people were getting much more comfortable quickly, so they could actually see what the different tools were. And we just kind of walked them through that. But one of the things too, in terms of just sharing some of what really worked, what we found was really blending different learning modalities, just like you do in the classroom. We provided time for writing and self-reflection. We always did a mindfulness time, just because, as you know, self-care, as Gerardo was saying, is so important right now, just time to reflect, and then inviting conversations and questions. And as Bryn was noting, just, you know, the idea of always making it engaging. Right at the top, we would invite people again, you know, like, where are you from? Here's a screenshot of what we did. And we would just walk them through the tools, and it just seemed that they would get it so much quicker than me just telling them. So you can very easily just take a screenshot and do a little PowerPoint with that. We'd be happy to share this with you as well if you wanted to use it. So that was an easy way to do it. Also, what was really important in the professional development was creating community, just the same with students. So we always made time for breakout sessions, which you can do in Zoom. So we would be in the large room for part of the time, but we would always give an opportunity to go into the breakouts, where we would give them some type of question or prompt. So, and many times that was that was their favorite part of the session, because they just felt like more relaxed. Being in a smaller group was more intimate. So we always like to provide some form of smaller interaction during our sessions. What else? Some other things. Also, sometimes people don't always feel comfortable sharing in the larger group, but what we found is, if kind of like what Bryn was speaking to, if you just call out their names, they would just be very willing to do it, but they weren't necessarily going to volunteer themselves, because there was a little that intimidation of this large room. I'm on video, but people really like to be seen and heard. So it's the same virtually as it is in person. So creating that community, that connection, by just calling people out seemed to really work so well. Creating questions for people to think about in the chat. See anything else that I didn't cover? Oh, and also when you're designing the curriculum, we really tried to simplify the content. so many of us are so busy doing so many different things. So we wouldn't try to give them so much information in one session. We would sort of focus on one or two ideas and then build experiential learning around that. So simplifying the content, simplifying the PowerPoints seemed to really be an effective way to design the curriculum for the virtual world. And then I would also just say that it's important to know that you can just be yourself. It's okay not to be perfect in the Zoom world, in the virtual world. As a quick example, or just also the idea that people are so hungry right now for connection. And this is our opportunity now to connect in this way. And we were with a large group of teachers, was it yesterday or the day before? And we shared, so the focus was, our learning skill was turning challenges into learning opportunities. So the question was asked, what's a strengthener or an opportunity that you've received from this challenge of being in quarantine? And one of the teachers shared that, his dog had an elderly dog, and he was actually looking like he was probably going to be passing soon. And he was grateful that he had this time to spend with his dog, because if he was at school, he wouldn't be spending that time. And it was just a very tender moment. And it was amazing how many people in the chat started to comment on it in support of this teacher. And then one of the lead administrators spoke to it and said, if we were at school, not as many people would have heard about it and would be able to see and support this teacher. So it was kind of neat to see how the virtual world has this other aspect to it that can be very supportive, engaging, and in building community and connection. So I would say don't shy away from the personal. It's a beautiful way to connect and create community during this time when we don't get to be together in person. So those are just some of the tips and things that we've learned. And I'm going to now hand it over back to Armando.
Thanks, Margalit. And if you guys look at it, we've actually, like I said, we did have about 2.5, 3 years into the virtual professional development and doing it virtually, which kind of gave us a little bit of a head start. But we did take all of our virtual offerings and kind of put those out virtually. But again, it's, as you guys probably have seen the data, it's a lot of time consuming in terms of getting these right and making them as simple as possible that you can do. So it is gonna, you gotta definitely let some time for your staff to plan, and that's gonna be very crucial. And I think for us, we kind of really found out that the best way for us is to collaborative effort in all aspects of our team, just to be able to collaborate and really give our students, our teachers, our administrators just the best way in the virtual world. Really quick, I'm going to share a few resources. There's many out there. You could take a picture of it, but these are some of the things that we've kind of looked on. Squarespace, that's what we ended up doing, our virtual learning annex for our students that host, again, that we were able to drive the students to our 800 plus sessions. So take a picture of this. And one quick thing that definitely learning, we did purchase over 33 Zoom business accounts for our team. Each school site has their own account that's able to do many rooms. But one of the things is spend time, and whatever technology you're going to be using for your programs, take time to make sure that all the staff get the accurate and the right training, because I think again, technology could be amazing, but if you don't know how to use it right, it could be your worst enemy, and especially for some folks that are not as tech savvy, to be able to kind of get things right. But I think for us, we did have spent a lot of small groups, just trainings, going over Zooms, how to create the virtual rooms. Because for us, a lot of our programs, we utilize breakout rooms into smaller groups. So how do we just making sure that we're creating those? And for some of those, we got to recreate them 5 times for the week. So if not 10 or 8 or 10 times. So we got to make sure that those rooms stay on there. So a lot of training. And of course, at this time, Stu, do we want to open it up for questions?
Yes, thank you, Armando. Thanks everybody on the EduCare team. And many of you, or several of you, have been putting questions in throughout, and please do. and we'll capture both for questions for Autrilla and the EduCare team. And one of the questions came in earlier, and rather than me read them, I'll probably ask, if you care to, just unmute yourself and place it out there. And I see Kristen had a question about attendance, Christian Knock. So if you want to unmute yourself about average attendance, that you had a question early on. So please go right ahead, Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen Kanuki. My question was at the very beginning with Autrilla, she mentioned that she had a really good attendance of around 500. And I was wondering what it was like before that. Was there still a drop off, or did you maintain most of your students?
We maintained. So if we were physically on campus, we averaged an attendance in ADA of like 890 a day across the district. And so with EXL Live, we were pulling in like 570, close to 600. Some weeks were bigger. Like I said before, our virtual field trips are our biggest draw. So those are the days when we're getting tons and tons of people. We did notice trends that with the lower grades, so K through 3, those sessions are more highly attended for academic enrichment and literacy than 5th through 8th. And then for social enrichment, there are specific activities that bring in huge amounts of visitors to the pages.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the question. And Saf, if I said your name right, Saf Gomez out of Seattle, had a question to Autrilla about the use of social media for advertising, Facebook and Twitter. So Saf, if you would unmute and go right ahead and ask your question, please.
Myra, are you still here? Because I'm gonna let Myra answer that. She handles all of that.
Saf, are you on? And Myra.
Hi, good morning, everybody. How are you guys? Yeah, actually, we just promoting it as much as we possibly can through Instagram and Facebook. One of the challenges initially was we were sending parents through their Clever account, and and this is literally when we first launched our EXL Live program, and I started getting bombarded by messages with parents saying, I can't log in, I'm having trouble. And with Shiva, quickly we were able to say, you know what, I'm just gonna start posting the direct link onto Facebook. And that minimized that greatly. Not only, I think, increasing traffic, but also increasing accessibility to that. In addition to posting it on Facebook, every day I would post the schedule for the day. I was also sending a text message every Monday to parents with the link and a reminder saying, these are the classes for the week, please join us, we look forward to seeing you. So I think it's a little bit of everything, but social media and text messaging definitely helped us increase our attendance.
Thank you, Myra. And that I want to just piggyback with that and ask anyone on the group who presented here about that parent support. You mentioned reaching out to parents, Myra. Tips you might give all of us about how to engage parents, support parents, in that way, just elevate the kids' involvement. So any tips about parent support and parents engagement?
Yeah, I mean, I was replying to the messages that I was getting on Facebook immediately. So I knew that, you know, when classes started or when lessons started at 3 o'clock, just shortly before that to go on, because I was going to start getting messages. For those parents who maybe their computer literacy level was maybe a little bit lower, I would just say, you know, give me a call on my cell phone, and I was kind of walking them through it. Also, the fact that we had a universal password, I think that greatly facilitated access as well, because they weren't trying to look for a new password. They were just able to use the same one, and they already knew that it was ISANA and so on. But just being available to them and trying to answer their questions immediately, because, you know, the longer you take, the less likely they are to continue on through the class. And so being there and answering their questions, I think definitely helped.
And I think someone from EduCare, I think it was Gerardo said, make sure that the staff is familiar with the technology. And so they talked about Zoom. And so I cannot tell you how many times parents logged on and they were like, I don't know what to do, especially with the little kids, and the kids didn't know. And so it really helped. We have a buffer in the beginning of our session, about 5 or 10 minutes, where it's just icebreakers, get to know you. And that allows our site coordinators and our session facilitators to guide parents through whatever help that they need. Just really being patient and saying it's okay, so that they don't get stressed out, because we've had parents get stressed out because they can't figure it out and they'll log out. So really just creating a buffer in the beginning of your session so that you can deal with technology issues.
Wonderful. Thank you.
If I could just add something too, sorry. So right now we're gearing up for the fall semester. So if you are fortunate enough to have some flexibility, right now we're in preparation of creating pre-recorded content specifically for our parents. Steps on school, like our main platform for the district is Schoology. So steps in regards to that, and perhaps some trainings. The thing that we learned the most from the pre-recorded content is a lot of times shorter, more concise videos are a lot better. A lot of people don't have time to sit down and watch a 1-hour video on Zoom. However, if you want to learn how to share your screen, a 2-3 minute video makes a lot more sense, especially knowing that your parents and the language that they speak, your community, making those adjustments for them specifically is really, really important.
Excellent. Thank you, Jerry. Thanks, Autrilla. I want to take it over to Amelia Rudberg. Amelia, early on, you were asking about, in your chat question, about camera use. So if you're on with us now, if you open your mic and share your question out.
Sure. I run a program for middle schoolers, and we did a whole summer program, and we just struggled a lot with getting students to turn on their cameras. And I think just anecdotally, it was because students were shy and didn't want to show their faces. And so I'm just wondering if anyone has tips, especially for like the middle school grades, of how to get kids to agree to turn their camera